Thank you very much for coming to the annual Central Coventry Fire District meeting. A lot of good progress has been made over the last 2 years, and we appreciate your coming out and supporting the continued progress as we go forward. Meeting is now called to order. We're going to declare a quorum. Our quorum requires 25 people, and moderator sees more than 25 people here right now, so
do we have an actual press?
Pardon?
Excuse me, but we need an actual count from out front.
No, we don't. Thank you very much, Steve. The moderator declares that there's a quorum met for more than 25 people by the charter, and it's, we can proceed with the meeting. We'll start with a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd also like to ask that you make sure your cell phone is turned off, please.
Could you pull it closer to your mouth?
Find the switch.
I gave you a
Hold the mic
I
closer
won't
to you.
hear.
Hold the mic. Put the mic stand on the other side.
Here we go. I'll just go like this. This will be good. As soon as I find the switch to the air conditioner, we'll do that. Right now, it doesn't.
Get right up on the microphone.
Huh?
Get up close to the microphone. So
Okay, is that better? Okay. Review of emergency evacuation plan. We have the exits in the back and down in the front here, so that in case of an emergency for evacuation, just head towards the exit signs and out, please. We will also, everybody's got an armband who is eligible to vote, and we'll be voting right outside that door. Some of you may have already voted for directors. We'll be voting for the budget at the end of the meeting. And those of you who haven't voted for the directors yet, you'll be able to do that then as well. The voting for both directors, the directors will stay until we finally vote for the budget. So there's still time if you haven't voted. Any other things on that I need to add on the voting? Okay, but it'll be outside this door, and they'll cut your tags off when you vote. We will now start with the chief's report, please.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you for being here. In the short period of time that I've been here, I was appointed fire chief on June 15, 2017. There's been a total focus on the operational, moving the fire district forward operationally. I'm going to summarize those activities. Personnel. Currently, we have 30 members on staff. We have 3 members on long-term OJI. Part of this total was the hiring of 6 new firefighters in January of 2017. In August of this year, 4 new firefighters were hired. 3 of these members started at the Rhode Island Fire Academy, and that academy started today. The remaining firefighter graduated the Rhode Island Fire Academy at the beginning of August and will start his shift assignment, which began this past Sunday. This brings the total staff level in the fire district to 34. Division Chief James Cady retired on August 19, 2017, where he was appointed fire chief of the Western Coventry Fire District. We congratulate him and wish him the best of luck in his new position. It was with a great amount of satisfaction that I could promote the following fire officers. Captain Mark Blanding was promoted to Division Chief, and Lieutenant James Amagno was promoted to Captain. Total incidents for 2016 were fire calls, 916, rescue calls, 2,751 calls, to bring a total 911 call volume to 3,667 calls. The tragic drowning of 2 people on Johnson's Pond in August of this year will certainly weigh on the minds of the first responders. Though very tragic, the search and rescue and recovery was certainly one that you could be very proud of. Apparatus in the department. It has been a high priority of mine to get our fleet of apparatus back in a serviceable condition. With this, we have made great strides. Engine 7 has been out of service since April, is now back in service. Both our rescues have had repairs done to them. A new engine was placed in service in July of this year and will serve the fire district for the next 15 years. A 2009 pontoon boat was purchased to replace our current marine boat. The pontoon boat will undergo in-house setup over the winter and be ready for service on Johnson's Pond in 2018. Equipment. 10 new Scott air packs were ordered for the department. These air packs will replace old and obsolete equipment. New radios were also purchased, and all rescue extrication equipment is being repaired and updated to today's standard. Fire station. Work continues to clean out Station 3 on Station Street. The firefighters have done a great job of renovating the day room at Station 4 on Arnold Road, and a contractor has been completed to do several repairs at Station 7 on Flat River Road. The fire marshal's office. We have 3 part-time fire marshals. They work countless hours on doing smoke detector inspections, plan reviews, fire alarm reviews, fire investigation, and re-inspections of violations that were issued. Training. Fire and emergency medicals training has been scheduled for the next year, and it will be executed by the new division chief. In closing, in the short time that I've been there, it's been all about moving the fire district forward and not reliving the past. I believe and had heard countless remarks from members of the community that this is actually what they see happening. This is a testament to all those involved in the operation of the fire district. Respectfully submitted, Frank M. Brown, Chief.
Thank you, Chief Brown. I'd like to add to the Chief's report as well of how well the department is functioning, how we've got new recruits or new employees who are been through training academy, doing well. Our current firefighters have done an outstanding job. Last year we collected over $900,000 on rescue recovery. That can tell you right there how many runs these guys are going to and how many citizens they're taking care of. Nobody just sent us a check. That was for services provided. They also responded to all the fire and other emergency needs. So I'd like to send out a real congratulations to the guys who, and it is all guys in our department, who have kept this thing running. They've done a great job, and we really appreciate it. So thank you very much to any of the members who are here. I want to send out a thank you. Next thing will be a report on the receipts and disbursements from the district manager for the fiscal year recently ended. Gail Corrigan, our district manager, will give this report.
Thank you. Good evening. I'll be referring to the packet with the colored cover. This packet is on the ccfdri.com website under annual meetings. So in case you ever want to, if you lose it, it's there. The first part of this packet is actually, the first page is the audit comparison from fiscal year 14 to fiscal year 16. The reason I'm starting with this is because there weren't very many people who came to the April 27th, 2017 meeting when we had this, when we approved the fiscal year 16 audit. So it's important to show where we started fiscal year 17 and how much work had been done in fiscal year 16 and 15 to get the district where it is today. And the first thing you can see is you have the fiscal year 14 audit, and you'll notice that the receivership claims were $5.4 million. That's how much, when the state left the district and pulled out of the bankruptcy, that's how much was on the books that we had claims that people were asking for money. And you can see in the fiscal year 2016 audit, most of those claims were resolved. It was only $77,000. You can look at the revenues and expenses, but probably one of the biggest things to see is that we actually had a negative fund balance of about $4 million. That means that we had a deficit of $4 million in 14. And by 16, we actually had $558,000 surplus. So that's where we started in fiscal year 16, and probably one of the biggest things for auditors and for accountants is that there was no opinion expressed, which is a polite way of saying things were not quite going well in terms of controls and accounting in fiscal year 14. And as you can see, in fiscal year 16, we had a clean audit. So just wanted to show where we started the fiscal year 17 before we look into the next page, which is the report on receipts and disbursements for fiscal year 17. And I've highlighted some important lines. So on the first one is the collection rate. We collected at 92%. So in terms of all the bills that went out for this year, the current year tax levy, we collected at 92%. The prior years, we had a tax sale, and we were able to collect a lot more. So we collected 407, which was about 157,000 more than expected. The rescue run recovery, as we discussed, it was budgeted at 675. We came in at 944,000 for 269 over budget. And the asset sales miscellaneous revenue, you'll see 185,891. This includes 165,000 that was received for the sale of, I'm sorry, it's not the Harris station, it was the Hill Farm station. That's an error there that I'll correct. In terms of administrative, when you look at two legal items, and you'll see that as a whole on the bottom, that administrative was 80,000 with negative variance. And you can see that primarily that was made up of legal general and legal interest and arbitration expenses. We had budgeted 45 for labor and interest arbitration expenses, and they ended up coming in at 111. So the interest arbitration is over. It will not be repeated with this contract. So we don't expect, these are one-time expenses that we do not expect to occur in the next year. In operations, you'll see that it's on a total, when you go to the bottom, it's a total of 17% higher than budget. And you'll see that the primary driver of that is the supplies, fire, and gear. As the chief mentioned, we have 10 new employees since 2017, and they all require turnout gear, which is quite expensive. Also the radios and hose and other equipment. So while we had only budgeted 12,000, we had spent 109,000. So it's a very big variance, which is offset a little bit by the supplies rescue. We had budgeted 50,000 and came in at 18. So altogether, it's about 63,000 for the operation line items. When you go to the personnel cost union, so these are the costs of all the firefighters. You go to the next page, which is the end, you'll see that pretty much it was like right on budget, about 0.5%, despite having an overtime of 391,000 for 177,000 negative variance, because we had primarily these 10 vacancies. But that's offset by you're not paying salaries of the 10 vacancies. So all in all, in terms of personnel cost union, it's a wash, and it's pretty much right on budget. Personnel administrative is 16% lower than budget. And then the retiree separation cost is 165% higher than budget. Primarily driven by medical insurance for retirees and separation payments and payouts. You can see who the payouts went to. And then finally, when we look at other expenditures, the hydrants we get the last quarter of the increase of the Kent County Water Authority rates, and offset by street lights that were a little bit lower than budget. And the big one, which is the capital purchases, we did buy a pumper for 423,000, a breathing apparatus for 48,500, and a boat for the pontoon boat for 8,500. So that was about 400. Yeah, it was $326,000 more than budget. And you can see with the debt, lease, claim payments, other. We were 30,000 under budget. So in terms of other expenditures, 44% higher than budget. In terms of all expenditures, 10% higher than budget, leaving an estimated surplus of about $100,000. So again, because revenues, total revenues were 13% higher than budget, we did spend 10% higher than budget. We still have a surplus. And it's very important to note that, again, we are debt-free. No debt was taken on during this year, no interest payments. Everything that we made sure to have the money before we made the purchase. That's it for fiscal year 17. One other thing to notice is that the auditors this year are coming out next week. They start next Monday, and we expect to have the fiscal year 17 audit done by November. In the November board meeting, the audit will be presented and voted on. We again expect a surplus, and we again expect a clean audit opinion. And so from being one of the last fire districts to complete an audit in fiscal year 15 and trailing in fiscal year 16, we will be one of the first, if not the first, Tier 1 fire district to complete their audit in fiscal year 17.
I'd really like to take this opportunity to thank Gail Corrigan and all her hard work. When we came in here 2 years ago, all we had was boxes of paper. The paperwork handed to us from the state, the numbers didn't balance. It was off by, I don't know, less than about $45,000, $50,000, and all they did was make an entry to make it go to zero. That's why you couldn't even get an audit done. Gail was able to reconstruct all the reports, get everything put together so that we're now, our first year there, we ended up with a clean audit. And that was thanks to Gail doing that part, and Marie Baker when she was there getting it all set up, and this whole board focusing on making sure we got in compliance. And that's where we are today, and it's a real testament to the hard work that Gail did, because it was not easy even finding all this stuff. One of the things I just would like to comment on right now is one of the big changes since Chief Brown came on that was, as far as I'm concerned, huge, and I think for all the people in town. Chief Brown instituted and was able to get a process out where we are now dispatching the closest unit available. So if there's a call in Harris and the unit is available at the Anthony station, it's going first. We don't have to ride by Anthony to get to Harris. If the Arnold Road truck is out and there's a call on Tioga Avenue, we don't have to wait for the Flat River Road truck. Hopkins Hill truck will come down. And we reciprocate the same way. So we're working on a system that is giving better service to the people. And I'm part of the people, so I'm really happy with that. And I'd like to thank Chief Brown for instituting being able to pull that off, because it was a lot more difficult than some people may realize. Thanks, Chief Brown. I'd also like to just point out one thing going along with the budget that is being presented. We took a random property that we had in Coventry, and in 2014 it was appraised at $345,400, and the tax bill was $889.40. In 2015, the property was still assessed at $345,400, and that's the first year we came in, and it went to $849.68, and we paid off debt, and we continued upgrading the equipment. In 2016, that home was still appraised at $345,400, and the tax went to $818.60. And you'll notice last year that we bought a brand new fire truck, $423,000 in paid cash. We bought a new rescue. We bought air packs. We're focusing on the safety of our people. We're buying the radios for emergencies. We just purchased another really good shape used fire truck today as our backup, because all our equipment was so bad. We were able to, through the help of Chief Brown, was able to find a really nice low mileage unit from Westerly, and so today we consummated the deal. So we have good equipment to back up the training of our people and our good people, so we're putting the package together. It's not just about cutting expenses, it's about making sure we maintain safety and build back up to where we can say that we're back in providing the best possible. In 2017, the budget that's being presented tonight, the home is now appraised at $380,900, and the tax is going to $780.85. So here's a home that went from $345,400 to $380,900, and the fire tax went from $889.40 to $780.85. The dollars are nice, it's another $100 to spend in the community, but it's also showing you how we're getting efficient. Everybody, the employees, the firefighters, the board, everybody connected with this unit. We're becoming more efficient and doing our best to safeguard and respect your money, our money, because I'm a taxpayer too, to show respect for our money and give them the best possible service while showing you that we can do it better than we were doing it before. So again, my thanks go out to the whole organization, the firefighters, the chief, the financial people, and the board. With that, the next point will be report on receipts and disbursements from the district manager for the fiscal year recently ended. You've got all that in there. You put it all in one, right? Good. Presentation of fiscal year budget by district manager on behalf of the board of directors.
So if you move to the page, major assumptions, fiscal year 2018 budget model. This budget model was started about 7 weeks ago. We started working on it in the office, started working on it with the chief and members of the board. So a lot of thought went into this budget, and a lot of, it took a lot in terms of knowing when the 4 new recruits were coming, when they were starting, even to the extent of what medical plan they were getting, because the budgets are based on actually who's actually there. The personnel for the union make up 71% of the budget, so we really wanted to get it right. But in terms of the major assumptions, we increased the revenue items to historic. So the prior period tax collection, we raised a little bit. The rescue revenue, even though we had $944,000 in fiscal year 17, we did expect it to be lower a little bit. So we moved it in between what it was this year, but in line with where it was historic. And in this year, we do assume the sale of the Hatch Station, and we do not include the significant non-recurring expenses, so legal, IT, administrative, and separation costs. These were one-time expenses that happened last year. We don't expect them to happen this year. We have driven down many of the expenses in terms of efficiency. So that's reflected in this budget. We do use the September 1st, 2016 to the August 31st, 2020 collective bargaining agreement. So all the terms of that bargaining agreement do appear in this budget as assumptions. And we use the census of 9/1/2017, which includes the full complement of 30 firefighters, 1 division chief, 10 firefighters hired in 2017, and the 3 part-time fire marshals that you heard about. We're going to continue the investments in both non-capital equipment and capital equipment. As Fred just mentioned, we just bought a used truck, which looks amazing, looks brand new and almost like too good to be true, but Chief assures me that it's a good truck. And then most importantly, we do continue a debt-free operation. So going to the proposed budget, you can see that we're assuming a 91.5% collection rate this year. Why is it a little bit less? Because this was a full revaluation. We do expect, in terms of some citizens, to actually contest their valuations. So the collection rate in such years is generally a little bit less. We do have $522,000 of outstanding taxes as of 8/31/2017. We're assuming a collection of $300,000. It might be a little light, but we do have write-offs that will be determined by our auditors. So in terms of revenue, 78% will come from taxes. In terms of department revenue, we're assuming the $775,000. Given that areas are being serviced now by the closest fire station, that is a pretty conservative rescue recovery number. And in terms of asset sales, miscellaneous revenue, you'll see that the sale of the Harris Station is there. And so revenues of about almost $5.1 million to run the whole district. In terms of administrative, You see the audit CPA services. We did have an RFP. We had audit services of almost 20,000, and because we are now have clean audits, we were able to negotiate that down on a 3-year RFP that just went out. So it's 15,000 for fiscal year 18 and 15,750 for fiscal year 19. So you can see some of the, one of the most often asked questions is, well, where's my contract? So you can see me personally is the finance director treasurer line item. It's 73,125. That's a contract position. My personal contract ends on December 1st. So it's 970.50 to December, which would be September, October, November, 3 months, with about half of that for oversight remaining for the remainder of the 9 months. There is a swearing-in ceremony on October 14th, is that correct, Chief? Oh, 21st, so I'll make that correction. There's a swearing-in ceremony on the 21st, so we are doing something a little fun and hope that people can come. And you can see that the administrative and service contracts, the legal general, I'm sorry, I'm jumping around. Legal general, you notice there is no legal interest arbitration expenses anymore, so that 100 and something thousand just goes away. And reduced legal general because we just don't have as much legal work to do anymore. So in terms of the administrative, it's slightly under 200,000, which is 3% of budgeted expenses. Rescue recovery fees is for operations, it's a mathematical, we pay 3.75%, and there's also collection costs. In terms of repairs and maintenance for the station, we still, even though we've done a lot with Station 4, in Station 7, there's still some significant work to do, and also in both stations, the furniture is quite old, and so we would like to get new furniture this year for the men. Vehicles and apparatus, it's 90,000. That is also, we hope to beat that by at least, what, 10,000, Chief? But that is, we do run these vehicles very hard, and there's always, they're always moving and there's always repairs. Supplies, fire and gear, and rescue, we're including definitely the things that, the maintenance and the supplies that the men need. So in terms of operations, it's about 350,000 or 7% of budgeted expenses. And as I mentioned with the personnel costs for the union, it's based on the 9/1/2017 census. So that's actually by person, what medical they have, what dental they have, what, if they have a waiver, and also their date of hire. So there's very many things in the CBA. What their post-employment health benefit is. If you're a more senior person, it's a higher rate. If you're one of the new recruits, it's a much lower rate. So all these things are built on a census. And one thing to put your attention to, overtime, we're predicting 350,000. Again, this is a very generous number. Expect it to be much less because we don't expect to have the vacancies that we've had. In terms of the municipal state pension, you'll see it down halfway down there, and you'll see it's 18.77% for 10 months, and then for 2 months and for the remainder of the next fiscal year, it is going to jump up to 26.78, and in December, we will know what the fiscal year 20 will be. So we're keeping an eye on that. We are giving promotional exams this Thursday on 9/21, and we do plan, even though we have 10 new employees, we do plan to develop a list in the fall of 2017, so there are expenses associated with that. The next one is personnel costs administrative. They're contracted, the assumption is they're contracted except for the tax collector. This is another question that I often get. So our chief is contracted, you can see the price. The tax collector is actually an employee. is the only employee on the administrative side in the district, and then there's an additional $92,000 that's paid for all additional administrative work. Retiree medical costs, they have increased, so it's about $108,000, and as you can see, the separation payments goes down. We don't have, people can always leave at any time, but we have the retirement of Chief Katie that we expected, but we don't expect any retirements. But again, people can leave at any time. Hydrants, this is the Kent County Water Authority. The remaining quarters, as you know, the rate went up a little significantly, probably about $55,000 more than previous years. The street lights, we know that electricity is going up, so we've budgeted for that. And the capital purchases, we are budgeting for the purchase, once we sell the Harris station, we would like to purchase with that cash a rescue for the $250,000, a stretcher for $18,000, air packs for $36,000, life packs for $35,000, and 2 thermal cameras, 1 for each fire truck for $20,000. Claim payments and other at $25,000. So these are 17% of budget expenses for a total of expenses of, again, the $5,084,874. That would give a balanced budget. And as on this last page, as Fred was inferring, if you look at the bottom box, in order to get that 91.5% taxes, we would have to have a tax levy of a rate of 2.06 for residential, 3.08 for commercial, and 2.06 for tangibles. That would give us $4 million, and at the 91.5% collection rate, the model is equal. And I just added the fiscal year 16 and 17 here, so you can actually see how the tax rate has gone down. And just from last year, the tax rate has gone down 13%.
Thank you, Gail. A couple of things. I just wanted to show a little bit of how we got here. When we first got here and there was the deficit and people wondered what happened. Part of it was the aggressive collection of taxes. We did the tax sale. We changed the rescue billing company. That was huge. Part of that revenue increase was we got a company that does a better job collecting and sending us the money than the other company. So we made changes in that department as well, and that's a good reason for the amount of increase. We also made sure that while we took a tax cut, we never wanted to hurt the district, and so by following the plan and paying off debt, we're saving $125,000 a year in interest. The state's plan, when they were taking over this, had they stayed with us, their plan that they presented was going to be paying debt off over 7 years. We paid it off in 1 year. Their plan was to raise taxes 2% every year. Our plan is to cut taxes. When you're paying interest, that's not buying equipment. When you're not buying equipment, you're paying more in maintenance. So by upgrading our equipment, we're cutting maintenance costs. By paying off our debt, we cut our interest costs. So these are all the efficiencies that have been put into place here that are probably, you know, underneath the layers and may not be seen, but there's a whole lot of these little things that added up to the big thing that's got us where we are today. The one thing Gail mentioned, the sale of Harris, we plan on using that to get a new rescue so we can start keeping our equipment in turnover so that we never allow ourselves to get where we were before, where a rescue broke down on the way to taking Helen to the hospital, where trucks couldn't be. We don't ever want to let our place get to that again for any amount of money. So being prudent is going to be important. So selling Harris will allow us to get a brand new rescue, first class, with the, what kind of bed, what do they call that, the hydraulic, to save striker power lift, so that as our guys can save their backs from having to lift people. Very important, and we want to make sure we're paying attention to that. We do have a couple challenges. Big ones are water has gone up significantly, electric has gone up, electric lights significantly, and the pension costs are a little unnerving as, you know, we're nigh 79% funded, so we're one of the better pension plans, and for us to go up from 17 and a percentage up to 27 is significant. So we're going to have to pay close attention to that and make sure that we're on it. So those are our challenges that we face going forward. But back to our regular agenda. Next thing I'd like to bring up is number 9. We're going to make number 8 last. We're going to go to 9. Vote on proposed amendments to CCFD bylaws. All changes take as up or down vote. Going to have our attorney, David D'Agostino, explain them to you. What these essentially are the charter changes we voted on last year. Cap the budget increases without an all-day referendum. So it doesn't mean if we run into a situation we need to generate extra money that we won't have the ability to do it. It just means we'll require more input from the citizens to make sure that they're aware of why we're buying it. We buy another tower or ladder that people can pay $1 million, the people are going to know about it. It's not going to just happen with 25 people at a meeting. So that's there. As far as a couple little title changes so that we can have the administrative staff who we need in the positions. But these are all pretty much the charter changes that were approved last year. We were unable to get them through the General Assembly. We're still not a favored child up there in the Senate. The people there still look down at us. Their whole goal was for us to fail. They never thought we'd see this day. So anyway, the charter changes did not make it through the Senate. So with that, we're looking to make them bylaw changes. Dave, can you explain them please for us?
Thank you, Fred. I think everybody has perhaps had an opportunity to get the 3-page handout. I'm just going to summarize what we did with this, or what we proposed to do with it. As you know, those of you who were here last year, we went through, I think, line by line, all of the proposed charter changes, and the voters, the qualified voters of the district voted on all of those proposals. As Fred mentioned, they were submitted to the General Assembly. They made it through the House. They did not make it through the Senate. You have to go through both in order to become law. So in lieu of that, and in light of that, and in keeping with the efforts of the board to return some control, both fiscal controls to the operation of the district, as well as control of the district to you as the voters, what we did was we included a lot of the proposed charter changes into the bylaws, because the bylaws only have to be approved by the qualified voters. It does not have to go to the General Assembly. So one of the important things, I know was important to several members on the board, was to increase the quorum, to make a minimum quorum of 100 qualified electors. I'm happy to report that we actually have that number this evening. We have obviously over that number, but so there's the quorum. Also the call of the meeting, there was a concerted effort to try to increase the amount of public notice for these meetings, to try to generate more interest and more support. So this language is taken directly from the proposed charter changes, and I'm just going to go through it real quick because I think it's important. There'd be a copy of the notice in the Kent County Times, the Reminder, or similar newspaper of general circulation, posted in each fire station in the district 60 days prior to the meeting. Thereafter, 30 days prior to the meeting, and then thereafter at least 7 days prior to the meeting. So the idea is there would be significantly more notice posted in the newspapers. Again, special meetings, changing that quorum from 25 to 100. In terms of the Article 2, the Board of Directors, this is where you're going to see the changes to the budget proposals. As you know, the board can submit and can propose any budget that it would like to propose, but the only budget that's passed is the budget that you vote on. So one of the constraints that we wanted to put in here is that the board may not propose a budget more than 4% above the prior year's budget, nor can the voters approve at an annual meeting or a special meeting an increase more than 4% over the prior year's budget. Now, that does not mean that you can't have a budget that is more than 4%. It just requires an all-day referendum. This language is very similar to language that's in the Coventry Town Charter. So it allows you to go above that 4%, but only with an all-day referendum. The idea being to get the widest possible buy-in of the qualified voters, the people who pay the bills. There are a couple of stylistic changes on page 3 and 4, and then moving under into section 4 of Article 2. It was very important, again, some folks wanted to have a recall provision. This recall of directors provision is very similar to the provision that's in the Coventry Town Charter for council members, and just allows a recall process. Under Article 3, the duties of appointees, I think everybody recognizes, and certainly Fred spoke to, the level of efficiency and getting efficiencies. Chief Brown, as you know, is the Central Coventry Fire District Fire Chief. He's also the Fire Chief in the Hopkins Hill Fire District. So we're already sort of acquainted with this idea of sharing efficiencies, and that's what is the prime driver under the changes to Article 3. The fact is that in order for government to run more efficiently, you have to have sharing of positions and responsibilities. And essentially, you have a fire district that's anywhere from 18 to 20,000 people. You're servicing almost 4,000 calls a year. That's a very big operation. But in order to do it efficiently and at a responsible cost, you can probably do some sharing of responsibilities, and that's what the changes to Article 3 are driving at. To let the board of directors decide the most efficient way of managing the district. And then that really is sums up everything. Again, just some stylistic changes on page 6. So, thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you for reading those out and explaining them. Yes, Cindy?
I've got some questions on some of these, because we just got these this afternoon, and then they're not totally like the charter changes, and I don't think the charter changes and the bylaws are coinciding in some areas. From my looking at this afternoon till tonight, there are some differences that I think they should be tabled and have another special meeting just for
We're not going to have another special meeting, Cindy, so it's either this year or next year. I'm going to put this out to a vote, and people can decide if they want to go with these. If you want to make some changes next year, feel free. With that, the chair will entertain, we have to just entertain a motion to pass, so all in favor. All in favor of passing these bylaws, please affirm by saying aye. Aye. And opposed?
Aye.
Okay, the bylaw change is passed. The next item will be vote on fiscal year 2018 budget and tax rate proposed by the CCFD Board of Directors.
We've got ballots for that.
So we are going to start, yep, we sure do, Cindy, thank you very much. I truly need that. We will be out there doing the ballot right out this door here to vote on the budget. And there was a lot of work put into it, and I hope you approve. We can start voting. Thank you.
Thank you. Like the vote.
Gonna have the